melody where the music's always bright. From history to theory, we'll keep your spirits light. Tune in for the stories, the rhythms and the groove. Join us on this journey, there's always more to prove. The melody, where every note's a thrill. The melody, welcome to the Melody Podcast with your favorite host, James Shelton. James Shelton. James Shelton. James Shelton.
Welcome to the Melody Podcast. I'm your host, James Shelton. Today we're talking about George Jones. George Glenn Jones was born in Saratoga, Texas. I hope I got that right. Sorry if I didn't. On September 12, 1931. One of 8 children in a poor family, his father was an alcoholic who sometimes grew violent. We were our daddy's loved ones when he was sober, his prisoners when he was drunk. Jones later wrote in his autobiography, "I live to tell it all." But despite these hardships, Jones and his family members shared a love of music, often singing hymns together and listening to records by the likes of the Carter family. They also really enjoyed listening to the radio, turning into programs like the Grand Ole Opry. When Jones was 9, his father bought him his first guitar, and when he began to display an early talent, he was sent out to the streets to perform and help earn money for the family. By his early teens, he found himself playing in dive bars of Beaumont, Texas as well, and at age 16, he left home for Jasper, Texas, where he worked as a singer at a local radio station, KTXJ, and nurtured his admiration for the music of Hank Williams. Jones returned to Beaumont a few years later, and in 1950 he married Dorothy Bonvillain. The couple had a daughter, Susan, shortly thereafter, but their union was short-lived, at least in part because of the explosive temper and fondness for drinking that Jones had inherited from his father. After their divorce, Jones joined the U.S. Marines and served during the Korean War. However, he was never sent overseas, instead finding himself stationed in San Jose, California, where he continued to indulge his love of music by performing in city bars. When he completed his military service in 1953, Jones continued to indulge his passion and was soon discovered by producer Pappy Daly, a co-owner of Starday Records. Daly quickly signed Jones to a recording contract and became his producer and his manager, a partnership that would last for years. In 1954, Jones married Shirley Ann Corley, with whom he had 2 sons, Jeffrey and Brian. His musical endeavors that year were less successful. However, with his first 4 singles failing to gain any notice, but Jones would experience a reversal of fortunes in 1955 when he made number 4 on the country charts with Why Baby Why, an up-tempo reminiscence on Heartbreak. On the heels of that first success, more hits followed, including What Am I Worth in 1956, Just One More in 1956, and Don't Stop the Music in 1957, each of which reached the country top 10. Jones closed the decade with his first number 1 single, the comical White Lightning, which also managed to cross over into the pop charts, number 73. With his songs about heartbreak, by the early 1960s, Jones had established himself as one of country music's top singers, as he continued to find chart success with singles such as Window Up Above in 1960, number 2, and the number 1 hit Tender Years in 1961. In 1962, the balladeer again returned to the top of the charts with what is regarded as one of his trademark tunes, She Thinks I Still Care, and the following year teamed up with Melba Montgomery for the first of several albums. What's in Our Heart reached number 3 on the charts and proved to be their most successful collaboration. But Jones maintained a presence on the charts on his own, as well as scoring top 10 hits with the 1964 single The Race's Own, number 3, and 1965's Love Bug, number 6. The latter half of the 1960s was much the same for Jones, with both his solo efforts and his collaborations meeting enthusiastic reception. Among his notable tracks from this period are the singles I'm a People, 1966, and As Long as I Live in 1968, as well as the 1969 duet album with Gene Pitney, I'll Share My World with You, featuring the number 2 chanting song of the same name. For his personal life, his personal life was once more in turmoil. Due to his ongoing substance abuse, his second marriage had already begun to deteriorate. But when he met and fell in love with fellow country star Tammy Wynette, its fate was sealed. Jones and Shirley divorced in 1968, and in the following year, Jones married Wynette. More than just a romantic union, in 1969, the newlyweds began to make music together as well, breaking ties with Pappy Daly. Jones also began working with one of Wynette's producers, Billy Sherrill, who added a certain polish to Jones' sound. Jones and Wynette partnership began auspiciously enough, with a number of duets, including The Ceremony and Take Me, reaching the top 10. They both continued to do well on their own too, with Jones releasing several top charting singles around that time. Wynette also gave birth to their daughter, Tamala Georgette. That's a funny name. And by all outward appearances, Jones and Wynette were the era's reigning king and queen of country. Behind the scenes, however, Jones continued to battle with drug and alcohol abuse, and his relationship with Wynette turned tense and combative. In 1973, things reached their breaking point, and Wynette filed for divorce. The couple attempted to reconcile and released the single We're Gonna Hold On in 1973. But while the song was a success, making it to the top of country charts, Jones and Wynette's marriage continued to decline. Jones' heartache seemed to seep out on his 1974 solo hit, The Grand Tour, a gut-wrenching ballad about the end of his marriage. He and Wynette divorced the following year. Despite their separation, however, Jones and Wynette would continue to work together from time to time, recording hits such as the number 1 singles, Golden Ring and Near You. By the mid-1970s, Jones was falling apart both physically and emotionally, as the years of drinking and drug abuse began to take a toll. He became unreliable and unpredictable, disappearing for days without notice and failing to show up for numerous recording sessions and concerts. His cocaine use also resulted in Jones dropping a substantial amount of weight, rendering him a mere shadow of his former self. But despite these dark times, Jones continued to make interesting music. In 1978, he recorded the popular duet Bartender's Blues with folk singer James Taylor, and the following year he released the duet album My Very Special Guest, a somewhat iconic title in hindsight, considering that Jones was rarely present when his companions recorded their vocals. Jones returned to the top of the charts with the 1980s He Stopped Loving Her Today from the album I Am What I Am, Jones' biggest seller to this point. And in 1982, he teamed up with country legend Merle Haggard for A Taste of Yesterday's Wine. Other chart successes from this period include the duet with Wynette, Two-Story House, 1980, and number 1 singles Still Doing Time and I Always Get Lucky With You. Following a series of much publicized run-ins with the law that culminated in his arrest for drunk driving, Jones finally began to repent his self-destructive ways. He married Nancy Spravardo in March of 1983 and later said that it was her love that helped him straighten up. He also released numerous successful duets around this time, among them Hallelujah, I Love You So with Brenda Lee, and Size 7 Round, Made of Gold with Lacey Darton. Dalton. As a solo artist, he kept pace with popular singles from his 1985 album Who's Gonna Fill Their Shoes, including the title track, which reached number 3 on the charts. His last solo top 10 country hit would come in 1989 with I'm a One-Woman Man, number 5. Though he remained a darling of country music critics in the 1990s and was inducted in the Country Music Hall of Fame in 1992, Jones seemed to have pushed off the radio by a new generation of country stars. He was pushed off the radio, by a new generation of country stars, including the likes of Garth Brooks, Tim McGraw, and Shania Twain, who produced a slicker, more pop-influenced sound. However, though Jones may not have been a generating hit single, he continued to put out strong-selling albums in that decade, including a 1995 reunion with Wynette for the album One. Around this time, Jones also gave the public an inside view at all of his troubles and triumphs with his autobiography, I Live to Tell It All, in 1996. At the end of the decade, Jones broke back into the country albums chart top 10 with the Cold Hard Truth. The Cold Hard Truth. But around that same time, it appeared that he had also suffered a relapse that resulted in him getting into a serious car accident while intoxicated. Jones later credited the incident with finally straightening him out for good. In recognition of his more than half-century-long career, in 2002 Jones received the National Medal of Arts. In 2006 he reunited with Merle Haggard for Kicking Out the Footlights again, and that same year was the focus of the tribute album God's Country. George Jones and Friends with Vince Gill, Tanya Tucker, and Pam Tillis. Among the artists covering some of Jones' biggest hits, in 2008 Jones released Burn Your Playhouse Down, a collection of previously unreleased duets with Dolly Parton, Keith Richards, and Marty Stewart, among others. In his later years, Jones continued to maintain a rigorous tour schedule, playing numerous dates across the country. And in 2012, he garnered one of the greatest honors of his career, a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. Jones died on April 26, 2013 at the Vanderbilt University Medical Center in Nashville, Tennessee, not Texas. I don't know if there's a Nashville in Texas, but not that one. Nashville, Tennessee, where the 81-year-old had reportedly been hospitalized with irregular blood pressure and a fever just a week earlier. With a career spanning more than 50 years, Jones is regarded as one of the country music's all-time greatest stars. His clear, strong voice and ability to convey so many emotions won over thousands of fans, as well as earning him the envy of his peers. As fellow country star Waylon Jennings said, "If we could sound the way we wanted, we all would sound like George Jones." No country artist was as dominant of an artistic and commercial force for a longer period of time than George Jones. You can't underestimate his longevity for his importance. George Jones made his first records when Eisenhower was president and was still recording at the time of his passing in 2013. By that time, age had slowed down the man known as the Possum, but just by a few steps. Jones had, to borrow a phrase from Fair & Young, lived fast and loved hard, but he did leave us with so many beautiful memories through his songs. A George Jones song could be a footloose honky-tonker as much of his early work was, but he was at his best when he sang about the demons that he faced, endured, and outlasted. Brutally honest in song, particularly with himself. This is a list of the top 5 greatest songs by George Jones singles of all time. Purposely, we left off his duets, particularly those with Tammy Wynette, that were all each 3-minute soap operas to themselves. But make no mistakes, Tammy's influence, as well as that of the women that inspired them, like his widow Nancy, are all over the map here. So number 5, we got George Jones's Choices. Jones could have recorded it at any point in his life, but at age 67, the vocals about a man looking back on and taking ownership of his mistakes had an unusual poignancy pugnacity to them. I can't say that word for nothing. Resulting in a Grammy Award for the man known as the Possum. Number 4, George Jones' She Thinks I Still Care. One of the most quintessential George Jones songs is steeped in irony, as the singer sounds somewhat surprised that one would think anything about a man ringing an old love's number. He plays the song in a somewhat sheepish manner until the final verse, when it's apparent to everyone, even the singer, that his ex left a wound that isn't going to go away anytime soon. Number 3, The Grand Tour. Originally released in 1974, this is one song that we still listen to every now and then. Just to ask the question, was it really that good? Every pain-drenched syllable reveals the answer, which we think you can guess with its placement here. Number 2, When the Green Grass Grows Over Me. I wrestled with the idea of reversing songs 1 and 2 on the list for George Jones songs. I really did. And to be totally honest with you, they are both hauntingly similar, except this 1968 hit was totally in the first person narrative. But this song is perhaps the darkest Jones ever went. The song that sits in the number 1 position had Billy Shearill's production and a glorious melody that provided some beauty and depth. This one, with lyrics such as "I'll be over you when you're standing over me," was pure sadness and brilliance. And number 1, George Jones' He Stopped Loving Her Today. Since its release in the spring of 1980, the song continually tops the list of country's greatest songs time and time again. Is that so? Well, we can't find any evidence to refute the claim. Everything about it, from Jones's vocal to Sherwood's genius production, was perfect. We know it's a classic, but try this. Pretend you have never heard it before and take the song each line at a time. She came back, they're carrying him away, a reef upon the door. Oh, yep, the greatest George Jones record of all time. Down to the haunting vocals of Millie Kirkham. We'd love to tell you there's a flaw there somewhere, but seriously, it would be a lie. This record is that freaking perfect. ShopMelody.com is currently down. In the meantime, you can check us out on Facebook at The Melody Pod for news and other information. You can also listen to the podcast for free on YouTube and iHeartRadio or wherever else you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.